It looks like we are recording. Welcome, everyone, to Parenting from the Heart. We're going to take just a moment to introduce ourselves, Allison and myself, who are your co-leaders today. And then I'll say a couple things about the technology we're using for this call, and then we'll jump into the content. So I am Amy Riley. I am a Tiara Coach. I'm the author of a book called Loving the Pregnant You, and I'm a business owner. I have a training and development consulting practice. I am mom to 11-year-old Mackenzie, daughter, and a 9-year-old son, Jake. That's a little bit about me, and I'm with Dr. Alison Miller today. Alison, will you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Alison, and I'm a global partner of Tiara International, and I am the mother of two children. I have a 17-year-old who will be 18 in October, oh my goodness, named Emma, and I have a 13-year-old son named Aiden, and it's been just really a delight contemplating and designing this, and for Amy and I to actually be putting into practice what we're going to talk with all of you about today. So thank you for being here.
Yes. Glad you are here. A couple of notes about the technology. So we are using the Zoom platform. If you have tuned in through the Zoom platform, you can see Allison and myself on video. You are not on video. And you have been brought into the platform muted, just to help with background noise. If you would like to make a comment, and we would like everyone to participate and comment throughout this call, we have a number of inquiries, questions that we'll be asking all of you. And Parenting from the Heart is really a personal business. So we want to hear about what it's like, what you're thinking, what your insights are for yourself. So please share whenever you feel comfortable to do so. And you can raise your hand in the Zoom technology to let us know that you have a comment to make. If you bring your cursor down to the bottom of the Zoom screen, you should see an icon for raise hand. And then we will make sure to unmute you so that you can share. If you have joined us via the phone conference, then you are on a teleconference line with us, and you can manage your own muting and unmuting. Just if some background noise comes up for you, if you'll please put yourself on mute when you're not sharing so that we can keep the line as clear as possible, as we have a couple of different technologies going on. Now let's jump into the content. We're delighted that you have chosen to join us today for a session called Parenting from the Heart. We know parenting is both a great opportunity and can present some great challenges. And the content that we have to share with you today will be relevant, can be relevant whether your kids are babies or grown adults or any phase in between, and whether your role is parent, step-parent, aunt, godparent, grandparent, guardian, whatever your parenting role is. So you can think about the variety of situations that are applicable to you as we go through the content. To get our inquiries about parenting started, we want to ask you to identify one word that you would use to describe an effective or successful parent. Take a moment to get one word in mind. If you're like me, it took me a couple moments to get to the one word. I'll be quiet for a moment and think of what's one word, and then we're going to want to hear some of these words. All right, raise your hand if you're on the Zoom technology, or if you're on teleconference, you can just join in. What would be one word that you would use to effectively describe parenting? I see Andrea has her hand up. Can we unmute Andrea?
Am I off mute?
You are.
Okay. It's inspiring.
Inspiring.
Yes.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah. And
Let's go
spirit
to
in
back.
it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It has the word spirit in it. So
Oh,
it's lifting
lovely.
their spirits.
Yeah. Okay. Beth.
I would say involved.
Involved. Great.
Mhm.
And Janine.
Respect.
Respect.
Okay.
Lovely. Anyone else want to shout out their word?
I would say presence.
Lovely. And I would say loving after a number of iterations, right? So we've got presence, we've got inspire, we've got involved, we've got respect. Some of these words are different, and that's entirely appropriate, right? When we think about and define effective parenting for ourselves, that's going to be different depending on us, our values, and even our children and what they might want and need. So we want everybody to keep their one word in mind as a filter as we go through the inquiries in today's session. We are also going to invite you to think of another word and hold this word at the same time. And that word is vulnerable. Why do we say vulnerable? Couple reasons. One is, it's kind of inevitable as a parent that there's some vulnerability to this, right? We have these little beings and we put them out into the world, and we're trusting teachers and coaches and police officers and authority figures, people driving cars down our streets. We're trusting. It's a vulnerable position. I think often of the phrase, and maybe others have heard this as well, where people will say, my children are like my heart walking around outside of my body. I think inevitably there's some vulnerability to the role. And Alison and I are also going to suggest that parenting from the heart requires vulnerability, right? To really be willing to look at when are we parenting from the heart, acknowledging when we're not, and being able to be real with ourselves about what's going on with us and our interactions with our children. So we're going to ask you simultaneously to hold your unique word and to hold the word vulnerable as we go through today's inquiries. Now, as we move forward, what we are not going to do today is we are not going to give you a checklist of techniques. Here, do this, and then this, and this, and this, in this order, and then you will be, boom, parenting from the heart. Instead, we have some inquiries for you to discover for yourself. When and how and where am I parenting from the heart? And when have I stepped away from that? We're using this phrase, parenting from the heart. What do we mean by that? Well, again, there's no right answer, right? We all have different ways to parent in alignment with our values. Yet we're parenting from the heart when we're connected to how we would consciously, intentionally choose to parent. When we're freed up from parenting how we think we should parent or how we were parented, or getting beyond an autopilot or reactionary mode, right? Being able to get beyond that to our inner wisdom and intuition about parenting. A good way to say it is that when we're parenting from the heart, we're awake, right? We're awake. We're able to get back past those reactive patterns and make powerful, skillful choices in the moment. So let's get in touch with what parenting from the heart looks and feels like for all of you. So question, what are the signs when you are parenting from the heart? When you are consciously, intentionally parenting, what are the signs that you're doing so? Because we want to be aware of these moments when we're parenting from the heart, right? And how do we repeat those? So what do you notice? What do you see? What's going on? What do you feel? any signs that you are parenting from the heart?
You can raise your hand and share
Yep,
with
you
us any
Yep.
signs.
You can raise your hand, or if you've got something ready to share. We'll pause here. And what are the signs that you are parenting from the heart?
Amy, I would say actually it's always connected back to my one word. Is
Mm,
that I feel like there's a pause and a space where I actually look and see what's going on first before I make a choice of what I want to say or I do.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's connected back to presence for you.
And of course, I've not done that thousands of times.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes. No.
I mean, that's one of the things I appreciate about designing this session with you is that it has helped me do that more. So I see Andrea's got her hand up.
Yeah, let's unmute Andrea to hear. What are the signs you're parenting from the heart, Andrea?
Yeah, actually, it is spot on with what Alison said, connected to my word, which is no surprise, of course. Like when my kids are inspired and they know they have found their way from the inside out, and I can see that. I can see how they move forward with a fest of life and not being bogged down by whatever life can throw at you. I mean, as little as children are, we are kind of being in pain with them when they are bogged down, and when they get bigger, they are also bogged down by the same by new things like grown-ups are. So whenever
Right.
I can kind of help them getting in touch with their spirit and move forward on their path, that is really
Yeah.
when I can feel that I come from my heart.
Mm.
Yeah, lovely. You can see what you've generated in your children.
Mm.
Yeah, and I see a comment on Zoom from Carrie. When I know I'm parenting from the heart, I feel like I am in the moment, not thinking about tomorrow, not thinking about yesterday.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wrote that for myself too, Carrie. A clear head. There's not this static or this swirl going on.
And let's see then. And then I see Peg wrote something too. Let's see here. Oh, when you say you feel connected to your daughter. Yeah. It can be
Yeah.
actually, it's beautiful, Peg, just that simple. If you just actually feel the connection. It's great.
Excellent. So it's great for all of us to be aware of, what are those signs? What does it look and feel like, even in our bodies, when we are parenting from the heart?
Mm-hmm. And Janine, what you're saying there is really great about when you get wonderful questions from your children, when you can feel that your children are at ease and you're saying they feel safe in your presence. That's another sign you're parenting from the heart.
Great.
Yeah.
A great variety of signs we unearthed here. And if someone else said something that resonates for you, feel free to plagiarize. There's also room on your worksheet. If you have that in front of you, your Parenting from the Heart worksheet, there's room at the top of the first page to write down some signs you're parenting from the heart. And if you don't have that handout in front of you, don't worry. Any old plain sheet of paper will work. The handout is just nice to pull it all together. So we've identified some signs that we're parenting from the heart. It's equally powerful, maybe not as fun, yet equally powerful to look at what are the signs that we have become disconnected from our heart, that we are not parenting from the heart in this moment. So give you all a moment to think about that. What's going on? What do you notice? What do you feel? What are the signs that you're not parenting from the heart? Great. And again, we'll ask you can raise your hand, or if you're on the teleconference line, you can just jump right in. I see Andrea's hand. Can we unmute her?
Hi. So actually, that is very much connected to the word that you gave us, vulnerability. I start to worry. I start to question their choices or have second thoughts, and then I try to not show it, to suppress that. That are signs for me.
Yes, the worry and the suppressing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great.
Mm-hmm.
I resonated with that.
Right. I think a sign for me is whenever it's like my ego's taken over and my intent is to try to control things or force an outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Definitely disconnected from my heart when I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I shared an example on our Facebook Live preview for this session about emitting carbon energy during a Boy Scout ceremony. And I was certainly worried about what others thought and about that scout leader, walking towards my son. It was about ego. I feel tension in my body.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think also I know that when I've had the same conversation with my children about something I want them to do differently, and I'm just a broken record and nothing's changing, it's definitely a sign to me that I've not been parenting from the heart.
Yeah.
I'm not getting through, and there's something about the way I'm doing it that's honestly just completely ineffective. And sometimes I think to myself, like if they were my employees and I was the CEO, I would have to really look at my leadership. That nobody was doing what I asked.
Yeah. I see Peg's comment. She feels frustrated or impatient.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Who hasn't
Yeah.
felt that way? Right?
Oh, please. Well, and whatever signs you said indicate that you're parenting from the heart, probably the opposite are signs that you're not parenting from the heart, right? You're not feeling connected. It doesn't feel like the children are trusting and open with you in that moment, right? Sometimes the opposite is a place to look for signs that we've got disconnected from our heart as a parent.
Yes.
Janine, when I cannot resist commenting on their friends. Yeah, and we all can probably fill in our own X there, right? When I cannot resist commenting on X.
Right.
Okay, so you have some signs that you're parenting from the heart and not parenting from the heart. And awareness is a really powerful foundation. Before we move forward in our inquiry, actually what we're going to do next, I'm going to turn things over to Alison to take us through some inquiries to create a parenting mantra that we can keep in mind. But before we do that, we have a disclaimer. We have a quick, simple disclaimer. We are not going to parent 100% of the time. We do not mean this to be disheartening news, but rather to remind ourselves to be kind and compassionate with ourselves. If we play the game of parenting from the heart 100% of the time, we're likely setting ourselves up for a game that we're not going to win. It's a dynamic job, right? Circumstances are changing. Our kids are going through different developmental phases. Yeah. It's not going to happen 100% of the time. Now, some developmental phases, you might find yourself parenting from the heart more frequently than others. It's nice. I know there's been some phases where I've been more or less comfortable as a parent. And we don't want this to become a judgment. That parenting from the heart is we're doing it right or we're doing it wrong. Right? It's really about just getting beyond reactions and becoming more aware of when we are parenting in an inspired, connected, heart-centered way. So there's our disclaimer.
Okay, good. It's a good disclaimer, right? Very important to have. So what we're going to do now is go through a process together that we can all create a parenting mantra. And you can think of a mantra as like an invocation. It's a call to something. It's something that you're calling forth that you want to come into your spirit and then emanate back out of you. And in a way, what we're talking about in this idea of parenting from the heart is really parenting from a home base, from more of the essence of who you really are and what you want to embody as a human being, what you want to emanate out, versus parenting from the ego. And parenting from the ego is something that we're all vulnerable to and that we all do. And so it can be really helpful to have a home base, an invocation, a mantra to keep coming back to over and over and over again. So we're going to walk you through a process, and we hope you'll play along and either raise your hand and share your mantra once we've gotten to it, or actually just type it into the chat, because it'd be great to actually see everyone's mantra that you're creating. Yeah. So let's start with an inquiry, and you can actually use the handouts that we have. You'll see where it says parenting mantra, or you can just take a blank piece of paper and answer the questions if you want to type on your keyboard, whatever works for you. So it's always nice before we do an inquiry like this is to actually just kind of take a moment. Sometimes I like to put my hand, you can't see it, my hand over my heart, and just kind of remember there's this vulnerable person that you are that is parenting and an incredibly awesome responsibility that is. So we're going to just take a moment and let your mind go back to thinking about your own childhood. Okay. I mean, you definitely want to do this with a loving and gentle heart. Sometimes some of us have some places where we maybe weren't mothered or fathered in a way. There was unconsciousness that came into our home.
Yeah.
So think about your own childhood now and how you were parented. So just for a moment, if you can get in touch with what makes you sad. Angry. What might still hurt inside of you that's left over from how you were parented? What did you need? The spirit, the person that you came in as, what did you need that you didn't get? What regrets do you have about how you were parented? What was positive? What do you appreciate about how your parents parented you? What did you need that you did get? Oftentimes we actually don't make the connection. We don't pause and think about how we were parented and how that's actually connected to how we are parenting. But the point of this is, by the way, not to blame our parents or to get stuck in the past, but rather just to be honest and acknowledge, reality. So we'd love to hear from you. If you can raise your hand or write in the Zoom webinar chat. When you think about your childhood, what stands out to you that feels positive and feels negative? So just take a moment. You can share whatever feels positive or negative. Andrea, you want to share?
Yeah. It's actually a very nice inquiry to go back there, but it also brings me in touch with that they are both gone. So it's not without emotion to go to that place. First of all, what really lacked was the perfect moments of safety or harmony. There was always something going on that ruined the moment. And as a kid, I tried to do something about it. So I also have my strategic skills from that experience. However, in hindsight, there's a lot more that is positive in how I grew up. And one of the things that I really, really appreciate is that they always have been supporting my spirit. They never have crushed my spirit. And I've seen that in so many households that was the case. So I'm really grateful that this was intact, and I always was supported in what I wanted.
That's great. Thank you so much. And you certainly sound like you're carrying on that legacy going forward. Anyone else want to share something that looking back, they can see was positive for them or negative for you in terms of how you were parented? So I see Janine, you said, my parents never had arguments. They had such a high standard that you then had trouble learning that yourself, right? And sometimes we actually didn't get to see how to work out or resolve conflict or how we were human, how to have the reality that we actually all are human, and you can see the impact of that now on yourself. Anyone else want to share something that was positive or negative? Betsy, you said that it was positive, that it was creative, communicative, thoughtful, there was integrity, but the negative was that it was unpredictable, there was emotional distance and being unavailable. And for a lot of us, we did grow up in environments where it wasn't completely predictable. And that's a very hard thing to live with as a child. And that kind of emotional distance. One of the things that you can think about for yourself is, did you get the bonding that you needed? Did you get the bonding in terms of words and language? Did you get the bonding in terms of physical touch? Some parents are very physically affectionate and some are not. So thinking about, did you get the bonding physically, emotionally, spiritually, in any way? Janine, you said, as the oldest of two kids, I was always appointed as the example. My brother had a hard time coping with that, right? And sometimes that's one of the negative things that goes on in parenting, is that we can kind of compare our children or expect children to live up to how someone else is living. And sometimes our parents can forget that we are actually each our own unique being. That one of the, I think, a really damaging phrase that parents sometimes say is, why can't you be more like?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Kind of a classic. If you've ever been on the receiving end of that, that's quite painful. So one phrase you can use for yourself in better understanding how the legacy of how you were parented has affected you is to say, what was I on the receiving end of? Right? Did your parent go through a depression or a loss of a job or a divorce or a marital conflict or whatever it was, their own struggles? What were you then on the receiving end of? Okay. All right. So then let's actually shift gears here now and look at how we parent. And by the way, you might be parenting someone who's not actually your biological child. Sometimes the people that we even manage in our workplace, it can kind of feel like we're parenting. Or maybe we are a parent figure to a good friend's child, or a godparent, or a step parent, or we're volunteering in an organization. There's lots of ways in which we can give both a maternal and a paternal energy, a parenting energy, to other people. So feel free to think about this also in other ways. So let's all think about, though, our own parenting, where we're parenting children, or maybe they're young adults now. Think about what makes you sad or angry about how you're parenting. Angry with yourself, angry about the situation, kind of sad upon reflecting. I can certainly look back and think about, particularly in the early years, how I just didn't have control over it was like my temper just got a hold of me. I wasn't in charge of it. That makes me really sad to think about that. What hurts or wounds from how you were parented are you passing on, or have you passed on to your children? maybe even in subtle ways? Where has the legacy of what was given to you been passed down in some form to your own children? What do your children need that's been a struggle to provide? I have kind of a funny example of that. I grew up in a house where when you were sick, you really weren't believed. And I find it very interesting that there's some bit of unconsciousness that's not healed in me where I have to make an extra effort to be as compassionate and loving towards my children when they're sick as it seems like I would. I'm always surprised because that's not who I am, but I can see there's something from my family legacy that's not yet healed in me. What regrets do you have about how you've parented? I mean, I can think of quite a few moments, many, where I just wasn't present or kind, where I was hot-tempered. So think about what regrets you have, things you wish you'd done differently. And what's positive? What do you appreciate about how you're parenting or how you've parented? What needs do your children have that you are, in fact, meeting? And let's just take a little bit of quick sharing about when you think about how you parent your children. What stands out that feels positive to you or negative to you? And you can share some of both if you like, or just one or the other. What feels positive to you about how you're parenting, and maybe what some regrets or what feels kind of negative or not worked out yet? So what about for you, Amy?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think authenticity is on both sides of the coin for me. Like, I think it's been a great gift that I've been transparent with my kids as they've seen their grandfather have significant health issues, as I've gone through grief,
Right.
as mom and dad have worked things out, and then I wonder whether we've taken it too far at times. I know we have, right? Where I'm almost leaning on my kids too much, or being too transparent, or mom and dad are now having a fight in front of everybody. So yeah, the authenticity, the transparency seems to be living on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no, as they say, there's no manual of how we're doing this, right? Right. Andrea, you have something to share?
Yeah, about the regret. I think what I regret was that I was not aware when I just got kids how unhappy I really was in the role. I was a so-called dependent. I went with my husband to abroad, and I made it work. And this is actually a survival mechanism, but I was not aware of how unhappy myself I was, and I think I was not completely able to meet all emotional needs from this unawareness and unconsciousness. And what I'm really proud of now is that I'm really conscious about myself, about also through the work that we do with Tiara for all these years. So I can now consciously parent and also be a role model of choices that can make you happy and more fulfilled.
Yeah. Beautiful. It was beautiful. And, I think very few of us are prepared for the reality of parenting. And,
oh, yeah.
I remember when a friend said to me, how come no one told me after she had a baby? It's like, because you wouldn't have believed me, of how hard it is. Yeah. But a beautiful opportunity. It's that parenting is really a gift to us, for us to do our own work and our own healing, that these children come into our lives not as something for us to dominate and control and make mini versions of us, but rather for us to see that they mirror back to us the places in us that are not yet healed, and the work there, the evolution that's possible for us. At least that's how I think of it. Janine, I also said you never were spoiled, but you spoil your own kids, and maybe that's a compensation. And that's a great word to use. Oftentimes we are doing things in our own parenting that are the counter of what we had, or to compensate in some way. And sometimes, and I'm not saying this is true for you, Janine, but I think sometimes we overcorrect. My mother was raised by extremely strict parents. She wasn't allowed to learn to ride a bicycle or swim or drive. They were Holocaust survivors, and they clamped down and were very controlling and fearful. And she was sort of went the total opposite way, which was, I kind of just did what I wanted. And looking back, I sort of wish she'd been a little, I mean, she was doing the best she could, but sometimes I think that we can overcompensate. And I noticed that own tendency inside myself, So, Carrie, you said you feel like you've been great at physically showing and verbally telling my daughter how much you love her. You find where you lack at times is when the anxiety of thinking about the future and how difficulty parenting is becoming and how it will be in the future. It makes you shut down and keeps you from being in the moment. You're pointing really, I think, to one of the key things that drives us into ego-based parenting, which is fear, right? And then we go into worrying about things, trying to control things. Exactly. So, well, let's now take some time to actually create a mantra for ourselves. This is that invocation you can keep coming back to over and over and over again, day to day, hour to hour, as you're parenting. So we want to just think about the answers that what we just came up with in terms of looking at our own, how we were parented and how we parent our children. And I'm going to ask you some questions, which you can just jot your answers down to there on the bottom of page 1 of the handouts where it says your parenting mantra, and then we'll have you form them. Think about for a moment, and if you want, you can kind of even close your eyes for a moment. You don't put your hand over your heart if you just want to do it in your own mind. And this is a chance to really go inward. How do you want your children to feel in your presence? I always think to myself, I want my children to feel safe and like they can rest in my energy. Think about how you want them to feel in your presence. What key parenting lessons do you want your children to learn from you? Like if they were to become parents one day, what do you think that you hope that the legacy they would pass down from you to their own children? Amy, I know you had an example here of that.
Yeah, I want to enable my kids to be themselves, to do things their own way, to be self-expressive. So as parents, I would want them to be folks who tune into their kids and what are their strengths and their unique needs and how do you support them to be uniquely themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful thing for them to pass down. Think about, what do you stand for as a parent? What legacy do you want to leave with your children? And remember, fundamentally, what kids really want is 3 things. They want to know, am I loved? Am I seen? Am I valued? And that's one way you can be connected to, am I parenting from the heart? Do my children feel loved, seen, and valued? So we're going to create our own personal parenting mantras. And a mantra is something that you write. It can be written in the first person, like I am, or my parenting is. It's in the present tense. You can keep it short and sweet so you can remember it. And it's an invocation. It's an appeal to yourself to operate in a way that feels true, wise, honorable, and right to you as a parent. Okay? So I'm going to give you a few examples, which, by the way, you're welcome to steal. And then please feel free to type your mantras in the webinar chat or raise your hand if you want to say it out loud and actually declare your mantra. So my mantra is, I am a source of peace and presence. Amy, do you want to share yours?
Yes. My parenting supports you to be you.
Right. So I'm going to read you a few examples and then you can start to form your own of this is about the legacy you want to leave, an invocation, an invitation to you to parent in a way where you feel like who you really are in your heart and on the inside then emanates back out of you. My parenting encourages authentic expression. I am connected to my kids and their desires. I allow compassion to flow through me. My children can rest in my energy. Raising a family allows me to heal and grow as a human being. My kids feel loved in my presence. Okay, Andrea wrote, my parenting honors the fullness of their beings. Well, that's beautiful.
Lovely.
Yeah, and you might not be able to come up with the precise words right now, and that's okay. But we really encourage you, if you do one thing after this, take some time to create that invocation because it's a constant invitation. And we won't follow our mantras all the time, of course, right? Anyone else have a mantra they'd like to share? Even if it's a rough draft. Feel free to, oh, here, Janine, you wrote, I raise my kids in dialogue with unconditional love, humor, and clear limits. Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's write that down. I really love the expression, I raise my kids in dialogue with. We could fill in the blank with whatever. I love that kind of give and take. That's a really lovely way to say it. Okay. So just take a little bit of time here to think about what your mantra is, because now we're going to do some work to look at aligning ourselves with it. So been around Tiara, you know that the concept of alignment is something that's incredibly important to us. Alignment at Tiara, we talk about it as meaning structuring your internal and external environments with your goals and intentions so that you're actually able to produce results with greater ease. So think about that. You're actually structuring your internal and external environments, which is exactly what we're talking about with parenting from the heart. We're taking from what's in the heart and we're actually thinking about what's going on with our kids and around us, and we're aligning that, right, with our goals and intentions so that we can produce results. We can raise a family in the way that we want with greater ease. And to be in alignment means you have to actually trust your intuition, your instincts when you're making choices, which is so much what parenting is doing. Things are happening one thing after the other so quickly. And it's really helpful if we can be in touch with our intuition and our instincts when we're making choices, where we're tuning into what feels good, what feels honorable, what feels right in the moment, what feels inspired before we take action, so that we can feel that flow into our parenting. I shared a story last week about, I'll tell a real quick version. I came home, my son had been already home before me with a few friends. They had obviously been hungry and eaten in multiple rooms in my house and left packages and wrappers everywhere. And when I walked outside, I saw that they were having a really great time, and I was able to get myself kind of realigned of, oh, I actually want to honor that good energy that's going on here, right? And I was just on the verge of kind of saying something to him about what a mess the house was. I would have been just completely out of alignment with really myself and what was going on externally, and would have created a mess. And thank goodness for this intensive, because I pulled myself back from the brink. Now, remember, when we are not always in alignment. That doesn't happen. When you're not in alignment, you're just not in alignment. And there's nothing wrong. It's just an opportunity to get back in alignment. So we're going to use a metaphor with you about energy to think about alignment that I hope you'll find helpful. So we're going to talk about in terms of clean and carbon energy. So for about 200 years now, fossil fuels, carbon energy, right? Gas, coal, natural gas, oil, has been the primary way that we've powered transportation, equipment, homes, factories, businesses. And about 50 years ago, we started to recognize that carbon energy, and it was actually polluting our planet. and creating damage to our planet and detrimental to our environment. So there's been a growing shift towards cleaner energy like wind, solar, and hydropower. So we could think of in a way that when we're parenting in a way that's out of alignment with our heart and with our mantra, with our essence, we are emitting more of a carbon or a polluting energy. So if you think of the bond between you and your child, there's this point of contact. So when I walk into my child's room and don't make eye contact and bark orders at them, I'm polluting. And I think of it like this little black film that comes and lays down in between the points of contact in the bonding, okay? If I pollute and I pollute and I pollute and I keep emitting carbon energy, eventually there's so much kind of black dust and soot there that I start to harm the bond, right? And you can see it in your own children when they do something wrong and they get real tense and brace themselves against what you're going to do. That's a sign that you've emitted a pretty decent amount of carbon energy in the past, right? And we're probably all, I mean, I'm certainly guilty as charged. Now remember, when we can pollute not just by yelling and screaming, but we can also pollute by withdrawing. Some parents withdraw their energy away from their child to punish them and give them a silent treatment. We can pollute by trying to control them or expecting perfection or comparing them to other people. We can pollute by not being present or always saying something that I will do is, oh, I just need to finish sending this email. You know, we can pollute by not noticing that they cleaned their room or they did something we asked them to. So there's all kinds of ways that we can pollute. Some of them are very obvious and some of them are very subtle. And sometimes we're polluting not because we're being unkind, but because we're just not present to the being that our child is, you know. Now, here's the thing though. When we pollute, guess who gets to live in the pollution too? We do, right? And so there's consequences for us. So think of a time when you were polluting or emitting carbon energy. If maybe you had a recent occasion where you were doing that, you were out of alignment with your parenting mantra or your heart. Okay, no self-shaming here. We all do it, right? Right. I went to a festival with my daughter the other day, and she started in the car as we were parking, I don't know, singing some song and talking really loudly. And it was kind of stressful figuring out how to get into the parking lot. There was a lot of people there. And I said, Emma, that is so annoying. Stop doing that. And I could literally feel the black dust emitting out of me, right? And it was just like, why did I say it in that tone of voice? By the way, tone. You could be saying nice words, but if your tone is critical or harsh, your tone could really be polluting. And so, you know, it was just an unexpected moment of pollution where I felt tense and stressed, and then I just, blah, you know, in the car. So just take a moment and think about that. What was that when you polluted recently, even in a subtle way? When you emitted carbon energy, what were you thinking? How did you feel? What sensations were present in your body? How did you behave? You know, what was your body language like? What was the impact on you and your children? Oh, and I didn't mention that there's a place for you to write this on the second page of the handouts, actually. And remember, no self-shaming here, no beating yourself up. It's just actually being rather matter-of-fact about, yeah, you know, I yelled at my kid, I was impatient. One of the ways that I pollute also is I ask my children to do something and they don't acknowledge that they heard me. And instead of like trusting them or giving them space to get their shoes on or get their bag or get ready to leave or whatever it is, I say it again more intensely. And then when they don't respond, I say it even more intensely, and they're like, Mom, I'm getting my shoes on. I heard you the first time. And then I say, well, you didn't acknowledge me. And then you can see I pollute, so they pollute, and then I pollute some more. And there's this weird way in which I can treat that if you're polluting as my child, that gives me the right to pollute even more. And that's how we escalate so quickly in often when we're parenting. So think about on a scale of 1 to 10, when you are polluting, how connected are you to yourself? When you're emitting that carbon energy, how connected are you? Okay, now let's shift over. We can shake off all that pollution, right? Think of a recent time when you were emitting clean energy, when you were more in alignment with your heart, with your parenting mantra. Right. So yesterday, my daughter wasn't feeling well, and she asked to go to the doctor. And, I had to be back at work. I needed to get her a prescription afterwards. And I just didn't feel like I had time to go and get the prescription. But it was that moment where she's like, Mom, I need to go and do this. I can't go to the drugstore. And I just said, you know what, Emma? I'm going to go and make the time and do this for you. And it's important. I want you to feel better. And she's like, thank you so much, Mom. And I just thought to myself, this is my job right now, is to actually go and do this. And it was totally not a big deal to go and do it. But I could see she felt a little bit guilty. And I just said, you know what, Emma, I would be pleased to go and get you the prescription. I really want you to feel better. Just that this is a little subtle thing, but it felt a lot cleaner. And something that I would have done in the past is been like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll squeeze it in. I'll try to do it. Like, why am I guilting her? Why would I pollute her that way? It's not necessary. And that has to do with being so stressed out that I let that stress leak out all over my children. It's not my daughter's problem that I have a lot of work to do, So think about a time when you were emitting a cleaner energy. What were you thinking? How did you feel? What sensations were present? What did you say, or how did you behave? What choices did you make? And think about when you emitted that cleaner energy, what impact did that have on your children? So on a scale of 1 to 10, when you emitted that cleaner energy, how connected to yourself were you? So we'd love to hear from you, either in chat or over Zoom. What's the difference for you between when you emit clean energy versus carbon energy? What are you present to? What do you think is going on when you're more of a polluter or you're more like solar and wind? What's happening when you emit a cleaner versus a carbon energy? Just see if you can recognize the difference. Yes?
Yeah, Alison, I can share as we're waiting for folks to raise their hands and chime in. One thing that I just noticed as we were going through this inquiry, I thought of a similar situation 2 different times with my daughter. One time when I emitted carbon energy, one time when I was emitting clean energy. And with the carbon energy, I just irritatedly, Mackenzie, from the other room. The clean energy example, I walked over to her, had the eye contact, and was like, what's going on for you? You know, asked questions and physically came over to her.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and as we're going through this, I've been aware of this in the past. When the carbon energy, when I'm emitting the carbon energy and I'm around their name, right? It's her name, and I'm going, Mackenzie.
Right, exactly. You know, when parents say their children's full name, you know, yelling it out is probably polluting. Right. I see, Andrea, you said polluting when I withdraw myself and clean when I stay present. Right. Who hasn't done that?
Exactly.
And Betsy, you said when I'm emitting carbon energy, I'm usually focused on myself, something I need, a disappointment or frustration of mine. And when I'm emitting clean energy, I'm typically more connected to them. Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly, you can see where it actually the disconnection starts where we disconnect from ourselves, right? When we only do to others what we do to ourselves first. The disconnection with our children always begins with the disconnection to ourselves. And if we really want to parent from the heart more of the time, it speaks to the fact that, and if we're struggling with that, the answer is to come back and be more connected with ourselves and what it is that we want to embody, what it is that we want to emit out of us. And we may need to make more of an effort to deal with our own stress, take more time to nourish ourselves and manage what's going on with us. But you will get the hang of it. And every time you catch yourself polluting, if you can just actually not pollute yourself further by beating yourself up for it. It's just say, hey, I just polluted. You know, okay, that's what happened. What can I learn from it? How could I do it differently? You know, Peg, I see you said, after emitting carbon energy, it sits with me and I replay the interchange. So I live in the carbon energy long after the situation. Yes. And that's a really important and a really great recognition, Peg, because what we were saying earlier is that when we pollute, we end up living in it. And actually, sometimes the pollution affects us more than it even does our own children in certain moments, you know. But, and we have to remember too that pollution is cumulative. So I live in Southern California, where it used to be that when you drove from the west side of LA down into the San Fernando Valley, there was this yellow haze of smog over the valley. And we changed the way, you know, we changed the emission standards for cars and other things in California, and that smog is largely gone, but that took time. And if we've done a lot of polluting, it can be very, very challenging. Someone said to me something recently, which is that there are people that we encounter in our life who are very carbonated, right? They tend to pollute a lot. But we have to be very, very careful that if we then drive a Mack truck through the situation, we just add to the pollution. You know, if our children are polluting, which children do, that does not give us license to pollute back. And we're just adding to the haze and the smog, you know?
Yeah, yeah. This is really good to remember. I mean, you know, Alison was talking about the soot that can build up, the smog we might create. So we might be emitting clean energy in a moment, but yet we might still be living in some carbon pollution, and we may get carbon energy coming back at us. So knowing that sometimes you think about it as a process, right? We're cleaning up the energy over time.
And we have to retrain our children. You know, when I think I've been emitting a clean energy and I get pollution back, it's two things for me. One is, was that really clean? Was that as clean as I thought it was? And number two is, sometimes it's because they're still relating to me inside the old pollution. Even though I was clean here, it's a sign to me that there's old pollution there and they don't trust me yet. Or they're listening to me through the polluted filter, and so they can't hear me. I haven't cleaned up the soot yet.
Yeah, yeah.
And my children have both actually said to me, given me feedback that I am much less reactive than I used to be.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, another inquiry that's important for us to have as we're talking about carbon and clean energy. Yeah, it's not fun to recognize that we have emitted this carbon energy. So we want to ask you all to ask yourselves, what do you most need in the moment when you're emitting carbon energy? I want everybody to, to think about this. What would support you in that moment, in that time, to emit a cleaner energy, to help you connect with your heart in the moment, or to your parenting mantra, or just grab onto your one word, right? What helps pull us away from the carbon energy? We'd love to hear from folks about what do you know works for you in those moments? What do you think might work for you in those moments? You're caught in the carbon energy. What do we need?
I think feel my heart, which two things, feel my heart, and then the saying I say to myself is to be true. It's like which means to be true to my essence. Like
nice.
to operate from the inner layer of my being rather than from the outer layer of stress and reactivity.
Yeah. Andrea, I see your hand is up.
Yeah,
what
actually,
do you need?
it is totally in line with what Alison said. I would say it is connecting to my true queen, which is Tiara language for knowing your own source of inspiration. And if I can just catch myself in the middle and I remember that and I can connect to that, that could help me to not withdraw, but stay present, because the withdrawal also is I protect myself also from something that's happening in the moment.
Yes.
So it's kind of a reaction that I have, and how can I stay out of my reaction and go into a response again, and actually connecting to that part will help me, or helps me to stay present and also endure the pain that I have.
Yeah. Great awareness. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a couple of deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sometimes you need to take a break and actually leave the room if it's too heated for you, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm noticing in my example of being able to move towards clean energy is walking towards the children or looking my daughter in the eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
The word I grab onto is choice, right? I have choice in this moment. What do I want to choose?
And, I think that we can remember that this is emitting clean energy is an aspiration. It's almost like a value. It's not a goal that you accomplish once and you're done. If I'm clean today, that doesn't give me the right to pollute tomorrow,
Right.
and that I have an aspiration in my life to emit clean energy in all realms, and to take responsibility and own that if someone else tells me I was polluting in one form or another, I get feedback that what I did, instead of being defensive and arguing or saying you misunderstood me, is to actually say, for my child, for my spouse, for my friend, for my coworker, whoever it was, that they experienced that as pollution.
Yeah.
Okay, and to have a sense of honor for that, that these are sensitive, vulnerable beings walking around, and that when I pollute, it's my responsibility to clean it up, and not from a place of shame or blame, but honestly from a place of power. Like, wow,
Nice. Yeah.
cool. I polluted? Great. This is a great opportunity for me to learn to clean it up. And actually, the more that you clean up pollution after it occurs, the less I believe you will pollute in the future.
Yeah. Well, and what a lovely thing to role model for our children, right? That we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. I've admitted this carbon energy, and You know, I'm going to put on my big girl pants here and I'm going to clean it up.
Exactly.
Peg said what she needs in a moment of carbon energy is to remember to pause, take a deep breath, connect to my heart, then be at choice. Yeah, that's actually a terrific segue into a framework we're going to go through next. But I want to share Janine's comment first. I need patience and advice from my best friend who has kids 5 to 10 years older. Oh, it can be nice to have those parents that are a few development phases ahead of you.
Oh, it can save your life. It's a really good point, Janine, is that part of what I think that we're also needing is we need tribe. So
Yeah.
I think there were times in the past when people were in more of a tribal environment where we were parenting in circles of family and community. And most of us now we go into our house, we close the door, and we're all these own little islands of nuclear families. And people also a lot of times don't feel like they can talk candidly about the challenges of parenting without feeling shamed, you know, and finding your tribe of other people you can talk to about how to rise to the occasion of parenting is really important.
Yeah. Before we wrap up our call here in about 8 minutes, we want to leave you with a simple framework that can help you shift away from the carbon energy, keeping your space, your energy as clean as possible. And the framework, the acronym is ACER, ACER. Pretty easy to remember. And the A stands for awareness. Bring awareness to the situation. Observe yourself with kind and honest eyes, right? Am I about to emit carbon energy here? Am I in a place, is my being in a place where it's able to emit clean energy? Right? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What's impacting me in this moment? Right? Am I taking responsibility for how I'm parenting? Right? Or am I getting into blame or shame or something that can take me towards carbon energy? Right? We've actually been practicing compassionate awareness throughout this call. And I've been really impressed and humbled and by the awareness and all of your ability to be with it all, right? The carbon and the clean. Right? So if we dedicate ourselves to this practice of compassionate awareness, right, our capacity to parent from the heart can grow. And once we bring awareness to the situation, Peg pointed this out, then we can be at choice, right? Coming out of increased awareness, okay, I have some sense of what I'm feeling and thinking in this moment. Now, what do I want to choose to do? Right? A conscious, intentional, grounded in our hearts kind of choice. Right? So we can use this in the moment. We can also use this when we're reflecting on for example, carbon energy parenting experience, right? And we can think back on that moment and go, okay, what could I have chosen instead? And then we begin to create new neural pathways in our brains, new patterns, right, that help us line up with our parenting mantra. So the A is awareness, the C is choice, and then we have E and R. E is envision. Envision is about envisioning ourselves, rehearsing in our mind, being connected and in alignment with our parenting mantra, being connected with who we are and who our children are, and envisioning. If I'm going to take this clean energy choice right now, or if I had taken that different choice in the past, what would that look and feel like? What might be created? Right? And you can see you can do this quickly in the moment, or it can be an exercise when you're reflecting on a previous exchange and maybe allow ourselves to get out of that swirl, right? And release it by going through the ACER. The R is to return back to awareness, choice, and envisioning, right? We're going to need to return again and again and again to heart-centered parenting. Keep bringing ourselves back to that awareness and returning fundamentally to who we are at the heart of it all, right? What we're inspired by as a parent, what our one word is.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Andrea, perfect. She just wrote, there's nothing as healing as a heartfelt apology. And Alison and I were talking about this. An apology is actually a powerful, compact example of ACER in action.
Right.
Right.
It is. Because there's that awareness. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. When we get aware that we admitted the carbon energy, there's a reason to apologize here. We let the person know, I could have done this differently. Here's how I wished I had behaved in the moment, right? And then we, we're feeling and creating new responses in ourselves and the other person, right? So it's a great example of a compact ACER.
I want to just share, for me, I think that apologizing has been the most powerful tool to steady myself and steady my system to be able to recalibrate and emit a cleaner energy versus more of a carbon energy. So one of the things for me that I struggled with was when something happened in the house where I was angry or upset or scared. Honestly, I was often, because really underneath the anger, I was scared. I would walk into my children's rooms, or I would go to them, as particularly my older daughter, who was a teenager and getting into things that were starting to really scare me. And I'd be like, Emma, you've got to stop doing this. I would just kind of it was just it was like really bad pollution. And then I would feel terribly ashamed afterwards and awful. So the real key there was to be self-compassionate and realize that I had something that was going on with me. This was about the fact that I was coming into contact with my own fears and my own kind of wounds. And I started having the courage to go to my children and say, hey, when I came in your room earlier, so that's the awareness. I'm aware that I actually polluted. I want to apologize for how I behaved. And I don't say I'm sorry. I actually say I apologize. I think it's more powerful, for me anyway. I apologize for how I behaved earlier. That is actually not how I want to parent. So I'm letting them know there was a different choice I could have made, but I polluted, okay? Yeah. And then I say, what I wish I had done differently is, so that's the envisioning part. I'm envisioning a different scenario and I'm sharing it with them, which, by the way, also makes me feel more accountable, right? And then, so there's the A, C, and E right there. And then the return for me is that I actually am letting them know, and we may revisit this. I might actually pollute again, and I promise you I'm going to do my best to clean it up, and you can even call me on it. And the rehearsal, so one way I think of it is, if I could get in a time machine, what would I have done differently? And that has kind of laid, as you were saying, Amy, that neural pathway. It's like an athlete visualizing a race, a mental script for me that it's a little easier for me to follow. I'm getting a little stronger and a little stronger, where I can walk through my house and see food everywhere and pull myself back from the brink before I pollute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, that was a great walkthrough. ACER is on your handouts, so you have that for reference, even if you don't have it in front of you right now. We just have a minute left. We would like to end with Alison reading a mandate from the Awakened Family. And before I turn things over for her to do that, we have one offer we'd love to share with you all. We have a Parenting from the Heart coaching offer. 3 coaching sessions. So if there's a desire or a swirling question that you would like to get some specific support around, we've got some special pricing going on during the Mother's Day weekend. You can go out to Tiara tiara-leadership.com. If you go to purchase, then you'll see this offer under the individual coaching opportunities. We'll give you this information in a follow-up email as well.
Okay, great.
And now to
All
wrap
right. Okay, I'm going to
things
share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a wonderful book, and we put the title and the author on your handouts. It's called The Awakened Family by Shefali Sabari. And this is how she opens the book. The mandate of the awakened family. The time for a new beginning has arrived, where family is no longer the chain that binds us, but the earth from which we blossom and the sky we learn to fly. No matter how the family unit looks, it begins with a parent and a child, a relationship that holds the energy of the sun with power to break patterns and resurrect the spirit. The awakened family waits for no one. It begins to heal right here, right now. It recognizes that these sacred bonds can revolutionize the planet. So for me, that's something I like to read. And that is, in a way, part of what brings me back to my mantra that I am a source of peace and presence. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amy. A joy to facilitate with you and design this. And it's really touched my heart and I think made me a better parent. And thank you to all of you for showing up today and being here and being the kind of humans and parents that want to actually look at how you're parenting. May we all emit cleaner energy, not just for our children, but for our planet that literally and metaphorically needs people like us who commit to emitting clean energy. And we wish you much peace, vulnerability, willingness to be vulnerable, and success on your own unique parenting journey. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.